This is a really important study that Serious Decisions did. We started it probably about 5 years ago, and it's been ongoing since then. It covers over 4,000 B2B companies, and we looked at the way they grow. Not only the way they grow, but how much they're growing, their growth rate, their profitability. And we looked at a set of common factors that are driving growth for them. And what we found is that alignment drives growth. Not all of it, as you'll see in a second. And the reason I'm starting here is because marketing can't be aligned with sales, and that's really what I'm talking about at this point, marketing and sales alignment, if marketing isn't doing the right things, right? If marketing isn't strategic, if it doesn't have deep customer knowledge, if it doesn't have strong processes in place, and it isn't measurable, it can't align with sales. So part of this is to convince some of the financial folks in the room. So the economics of alignment. So there's a number of ways companies grow. First, they grow along with their markets, right? Whatever market they're in, if that's growing, that's going to give them a lot of lift. If it's shrinking, that's going to probably cause them to shrink as well. Next, their competitiveness, right? How good are they at what they do, right? Is their product as good? Are their services good? Is their pricing reasonable? Are their go-to-market strategies effective? Then we have efficiency. We all know what that is, right? Their profitability, their ability to do all those things that they do competitively at a reasonable cost. And then finally, there's alignment. So we looked at all of those factors across the board, and we figured out, okay, well, when we think about growth, what's driving it? And as you can see here, most of it, for most B2B companies, is market growth. And by the way, again, over 4,000 companies, there are significant differences here depending on the scale of the business, right? If you're looking at a company over $5 billion in annual revenue, it's more like 90% of their growth is market driven, and there's other factors. Smaller companies grow for different reasons. Then there's competitiveness and efficiency, which basically accounts for about 12 to 34% of their growth. And then of course, there's alignment, which based on the study that we do, again, it's constantly ongoing, accounts for between 5% and 36% of that growth. And there's a huge gap there, again, because of the scale of these businesses. Again, if you're dealing with an SAP, for example, you're looking at alignment in terms of business divisions, not across the entire enterprise, and they're growing for all kinds of reasons, and a lot of it's just pure acquisition, right? So there's some differences there. But ultimately, what we found is to grow faster, and as you'll see, to be more profitable, it requires alignment between sales and marketing. That means they're truly integrated and working together. So what are the criteria we use to evaluate alignment? So first was what we call interlocking processes, right? So they are truly going to market in a very much integrated fashion. Measurement systems, and typically what we were looking for was shared measurement across sales and marketing, right? So they looked at that customer journey, the buyer journey, and the customer life cycle as a continuous closed loop cycle that they both had responsibility within, and they were sharing metrics. The presence of service level agreements. That might sound kind of old school, but when they're there and they're adhered to, that tells us everybody understands the rules of engagement, especially as it relates to demand generation, right? So marketing is holding up their end of the deal in terms of quality and volume of leads. Sales is holding up their end of the deal in terms of timeliness and responding to those, moving them through stages in the right ways, entering data into systems in the right ways. Then we looked at waterfall performance, specifically their funnel performance, because that will tell you a huge amount about how aligned a sales and marketing organization is. And then pipeline impact, right? So pipeline impact from marketing in terms of not just generation and contribution, but also pipeline acceleration, which is also a very strong alignment signal, right? If sales is saying, yes, marketing, you are able to market to those organizations that I have currently in pipeline to accelerate those deals, there's a lot of trust there, and there's a strong signal of alignment. So that's what we look for, and this is just one example. So this is the old school Serious Decisions demand waterfall, of which I was one of the creators. I will say this, I spent a lot of my time encouraging my clients to move past this now and get to account level qualification, but the vast majority of B2B companies are still focused on MQLs and generating leads, even if we won't be there 5 years from now. So what we show here is kind of average performance and best in class. The BIC is best in class performance. And you can see the difference, and each one of these numbers is conversion rate. So inquiries, hand raisers, responses to marketing qualified leads, average is about 4.4% conversion rate. Best in class is about 9.3% conversion rate. All the way down until you get to the bottom, sales qualified leads, right? That's pipeline to closed won business. Average is about 20.3%. Best in class is 29%, a little over 29%. So this is something that I use with my clients all the time, and their CFOs and their CEOs and boards of directors, to demonstrate the fact that, guess what? If there's strong alignment, you can't have that if there is strong alignment, you will have that best-in-class performance. But look at the difference in the close rates that sales is having. It's almost 10% better, right? What that means is that marketing is not only generating a lot of pipeline and ultimately sourcing revenue for the business, but they're making sales far more productive as well, right? Better able to close and win deals more frequently and usually in a shorter time span. So one of the things I always encourage my CMOs to do is to create a baseline of sales productivity that's based on average sales cycle lengths and close rates. And then as marketing is executing, try to measure the change you see there, and you can see a correlation typically in what happens. And that's pretty powerful for CFOs, because one of the things that we're up against in marketing is the fact that the math of sales contribution to the business is really simple. It's really clear. So when a company is looking to grow, typically they'll say, hey, this is our growth target that we're trying to achieve. And then immediately the math that they start doing is, all right, how many new sales reps do we have to hire? Because they know exactly what that's going to cost, how long it takes to ramp them and onboard them, and what they should typically produce by the time they're fully productive. So really simple math. And meanwhile, marketing math typically isn't that simple. However, when you can begin to have conversations about alignment and this kind of performance, you can begin to talk about how marketing investment can make all of your sales reps more productive and more efficient, which has a huge impact, and it changes the math for CFOs. So, this is just, we charted a lot of these companies. Of course, we're an analyst firm, so we love quadrants, we have to use them, and basically figured out, okay, well, there's a lot of companies down here in the bottom left that are just misaligned. Maybe they're at the foundational stage and beginning to get there. There's a lot of companies that we call competitive, which means that they have high revenue growth, but pretty poor alignment. These are typically companies that are riding growth based on a product, right? As most B2B companies, especially technology companies, will for a period of time. They get a lot of growth out of a great and unique product, and then that begins to level off. Then there's a line for growth in these companies, and they typically grow 19% faster than those who are not well aligned. And then there's a line for profit. So these companies that are highly aligned, they're not experiencing the tremendous revenue growth, but they're more profitable. And by the way, that bottom right quadrant are typically very, very large enterprises. So more profitable than their peers, but again, they're not experiencing that massive growth rate. So most struggle to stay here, right? That competitive space, because again, it's typically on the back of a highly differentiated product, and guess what? Competitors are going to emerge and they're going to catch up pretty quickly. A strong foundation is required here, right? You're just building. Of course, strong alignment is easily disrupted. That's the thing. When we see these highly aligned companies, we're keeping track of them now for almost 5 years. And both planned and unplanned changes in their business can disrupt that alignment really easily. So it's something that needs to be constantly watched. And of course, efficient companies grow faster and create more profit. So the point is, in general, very high levels of alignment. We're seeing 19% faster growth rates and 15% more profitability for those companies.